Well, I'm going to share something here, and I hope it's appropriate. If it's not, we can edit it out. But a few days after my son died, I was so full of pain and grief. Something just switched in my brain, and I just wanted to... Trigger warning. This podcast is about grief. Whether you are newly bereaved or whether you have been stuck in grief for years, I do hope this podcast brings you some comfort. Grief is such a universal experience, but we all do it differently. This podcast is not about fixing you or forcing the healing process, because there is no cure for grief. It can only be experienced, absorbed, loved and cared for. So whether you are doing it privately behind closed doors or, like me, you are kicking and screaming your way through, let's support each other. My name is Louise Bates, and my hope is that this podcast shines a light on your path and gives you the strength to navigate your way through the grieving process. I'm sending you so much love and support, and I look forward to sharing this journey with you. Hello and welcome to this episode of A Gift for Grief, and today I am honoured to speak with Palomi and Kieran from the charity SOS Silence of Suicide. But before I do this, I'd like to just preface this episode with a trigger warning. We will be talking about suicide and bereavement by suicide. But if you feel this subject is too heavy or too difficult to listen to, please tune into something a bit lighter. But I do hope people listen, because I feel this episode is probably one of the most important ones to date, because it could potentially save a life. So welcome, Palomi and Kieran.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for being my guests today. So before we start, could you introduce yourselves and tell us about your roles within the charity?
So I'm Kieran, and I've worked for the charity for 2 years now, and I am one of the senior marketing and communication officers, as well as my colleague.
And I'm Palomi, same as Kieran. I'm the senior marketing and communications officer, and I've been here for about 5 months now, pretty new to the job.
Okay.
So yeah, Kieran looks at most of the PR related stuff. I am looking into moving things onto the digital platform, making it more digital first, because that's where people are post-COVID. So that's where we are at. We're still getting the structures ready for both of us.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I first came across your charity from seeing your adverts on the TV, and then it kept popping up on my Facebook timeline. Those algorithms.
Yes, they do
But
that.
for anyone who doesn't know about SOS Silence of Suicide, could you tell us a little bit about it and how it came about?
So the charity itself was born out of Michael Mansfield and his wife, Yvette Greenway Mansfield, the loss of his daughter Anna and her friend Ian. So for them, initially the charity started off as they were going around doing group talks. So they were going into businesses and they were sharing their story of their grief and their loss to try and open up the conversation about suicide and how the silence and people not talking about it can have that effect. And hopefully trying to open a doorway for more conversation on how people were feeling, to try and look into that suicide prevention element.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of started, and then they've been as far as New Zealand, Belfast, all over doing talks.
We had the free phone helpline come up in 4 years later, from 2015, so 2019, 20, which has become the prime center of the services that we provide.
Yeah.
Eventually then we have had training services and then the mobile wellbeing hubs, so to increase our outreach to the various communities and sectors within England, because it is a national charity now. It has been for quite a few years.
It's definitely evolved. I think the initial starting point was after the talks. They introduced the group gatherings. Actually, one of the first ones they held was in Leamington, because the charity itself is predominantly based in Warwick and Kenilworth. So that's where they're based. But it was at the old bingo hall. That's where they had the very first group gathering. and had quite a lot of conversations, people who hadn't spoken at all about how they felt and actually shared their story, and it had that ripple effect of more people talking. So that kind of was the premise of how the charity kind of grew. And then during COVID, they couldn't have the group gathering, so they introduced the helpline. So effectively, people could ring up and they would have a one-to-one conversation.
So it's grown and grown over the years, hasn't it? And you do have an amazing website. And I'd like to read out a small piece which I feel encompasses the work of the charity. SOS Silence of Suicide focuses on the crucial aspects of prevention, intervention and awareness with the aim of helping those in need and reducing the number of suicides in the UK. Now, I had no idea that in the UK last year, 7,064 people died by suicide. That's like 19 people a day, which is staggering. Are you able to share how your charity has made a difference?
Because we're mainly focused on the prevention.
Yeah.
We want to try and prevent people from getting to that crisis point. One of the things we can say is our helpline. I mean, we de-escalated 1,500.
14.
Was it?
And 14, 1514.
Oh, it's gone up. Those who were actively trying to end their life.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was within a year, actually, between April 2024 and April 2025. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at it statistically, but it also means that those many families and so many of their friends and colleagues and everyone, because suicide is just not a number, it's a person, right?
Yeah.
And the people around them, the bereavement that they leave behind. So
It impacts
it's just
a
the tip
lot
of the
people,
iceberg, the
doesn't it?
1,514 number, if you look at it.
I mean, that's the interesting fact, because the likelihood, statistics show that those who have lost someone to suicide are highly likely and susceptible to take their own life as well. So you can look at it as 1,500, but the domino effect of how many more people that would affect.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you can bring that down, then you ease it off. I mean, we're only one part of one cog in a big wheel
Yes.
of other charities, because there's a lot of many charities out there, and we're all trying to do our part, really.
Yeah. Well, they're so needed, aren't they?
Yeah, but the shout out needs to go to our frontline call handlers and spot checkers, because there's no script provided to them. It's just the training that they get initially, and then it's all heart and warmth and understanding that they bring to the table every single day, because you don't know who's going to call and what state of mind they are in. But I would like to quote this recent email that we received from one of the callers, and obviously they want to stay anonymous, and we cannot name our call handler either for the sake of anonymity, but this person has had their email said that they were going through multiple traumas at the point, like physical ailments, relationship problems and everything.
Yeah.
The day they called, and their quote was that the call handler was just doing their job. I understand that, but the kind of warmth they brought in, the kind of understanding that I received, I had not received from my friends or peer group or anything, and that actually made a difference. So to understand and appreciate that each of those calls could be the difference between life and death is humongous, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It makes you feel so humble in what we are doing in our jobs.
Yes.
As well. So
Yeah. It's so needed.
extremely
And the
impactful.
interesting thing is that there is a little bit of disparity around the types of calls we get, because everyone assumes that the people who ring us, they're at a point of crisis point. There's different levels, so the call handler will assess what level they're at, and it could be, we get some calls where they come in where they're really at a point where they've got nowhere to turn and they don't know how to get themselves out of the situation.
Kind of like the last port of call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that call handler is able to give them the space to breathe, to process, and take a moment just to see, get them into a space where they can think clearly.
Yeah.
But then we also get people who call not for mental health reasons, it's everyday stuff. It's
Okay.
everyday worries. It could be financial, it could be a relationship breakdown, and they all have an impact on someone's well-being. So it's trying to break the stigma around that it's not just people who are calling the helpline who are suffering a mental health issue or crisis. we get a mixture of calls, and I think it just shows you that the situation that we're dealing with, as well as other charities, is a lot wider.
Yeah, because the carers as well, they are impacted by someone with suicide ideation or mental health issues, if I may say so. They call in a lot, and they need that support as well. There are survivors, as he said, they're more susceptible to suicide within the first few years as well, and because survivors' guilt is huge.
So is the charity also there for, so say if somebody's worried about a colleague or a friend or a member of the family, if they're worried about their mental health, can they phone in for advice as well?
Yes,
Then? Yeah,
absolutely.
They can do, because the helpline was kind of a breakaway from the initial group gatherings that we used to hold. And the whole purpose of those was to allow people who maybe know someone who's going through that struggle, and they just need to listen to other people and hearing other people's experiences. It has that way of kind of giving them the answers and bounce ideas, but those are kind of group gatherings will be facilitated though. So the people who attended pretty much ran them.
Yeah.
At the pace and of how they wanted to at that moment in time. But that's how I like to see is we are facilitators in what we do, and we're encouraging people to open up and have those conversations. Yeah.
And you recently launched a digital awareness campaign called Purplised to Prevent.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about this?
So it was, as we said, we're trying to move things onto the digital platform more and more, because the world is on your palm right now, which is a good thing and a bad thing, mostly bad thing. But we wanted to use that to our benefit and raise awareness through visibility, so no one feels alone. So the digital campaign was about asking people to don the color purple in any shade of their choice, because every shade would give some message. Something gives you the message of strength, some shade of purple gives the message of resilience, but it just tells. We were trying to build a community of supportive individuals through organizations, communities, councils, to tell people who are feeling alone or silenced that they are not, that we stand without judgment, to listen to them and to support them in any and every way that we can. It was done for the first time in the UK around World Suicide Prevention Day, that's 10th September. So we had a week-long kind of an event, and people used our templates to change their logos as well to purple on their digital platforms, on their Teams meetings, etc., to just show solidarity. I think a lot of organizations and charities got involved as well.
It kind of fed into the bigger, wider, breaking the silence. Stopping the silence, start the conversation.
Yes. Yeah, also the conversations that need to be started. But what we realized there, because there are two major things that we realized while running this campaign, is that suicide is a silent endemic, which we all know about. But there are people who are keen to talk about it and come together. But there is a lack of, you wouldn't know how to start a conversation or how to help someone open up. So that was also a big part of Purpleize, introducing the free digital self-paced open course, which Kieran would be able to tell more about.
Yes, I'd like to hear more about
because
that.
Because we're trying to integrate all of it, because you stand up wearing that color purple to show someone that you are not alone, I'm here for you, but then that person approaches you and says, I'm sad, and then you're like, I don't know what to say now. What next?
It's so difficult, isn't it?
Yes. You feel reluctant to talk.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting, because talking about suicide is one of the hardest conversations to have. And people already struggle to talk about grief and loss generally, but when suicide is involved, it feels even more difficult. But the charity offers this free online course, which I recently completed. I have to say, I found it really interesting. And it's called Open Conversations Course. Can you explain to someone listening what it's about and who it's for?
So this kind of course was born out of a lot of the kind of conversations that we've probably had internally, and conversations that everyone's had, where they wish they could have done more.
Yeah.
I can only pull on my experiences of, unfortunately losing probably 4 or 5 friends to suicide.
Oh my goodness.
Quite recently, in the space of a few years. But the same conversations that we'd had at the funeral, I wish I'd said something. I wish I could have spotted the signs. And naturally, sometimes you might neither spot the signs. So you need to understand, and that sometimes can be a situation. But this course was born out of that as a way of, as a charity. I mean, we've always had it made clear to us that the charity will only exist as long as it's needed for.
Yeah.
We're not, we've been told by our CEO that, if we can make a difference, then, and take away the kind of point of getting to crisis point and the prevention element of suicide, then that is the main goal.
Yeah, in an ideal world, we should not be existing, is how she had put it to us.
As part of the 10-year anniversary, because the charity's been going for 10 years, and it was part of the give back. And actually, how could we give back? Well, we could enable others to kind of do what we do, but actually change the narrative around how people communicate with others, and instill that confidence in others to be able to tap into humanity and actually not walk past someone, looking distressed or not, intervening in the first instance. Because I think we want to tackle the prevention element before it gets to crisis point. If someone's having a really bad day and you spot someone, having that confidence to go up to them and say, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
And not the fear
that
of...
reluctance is always there.
It's easier sometimes to just not go there, isn't it? You want to be seen to do the right thing, and is that the right thing?
Yes.
Am I imposing? What happens if they do open up? What do I do?
Yeah.
So that's where this course is kind of built into there's 4 different steps. So open is cleverly done in a way. Yeah. So you've got your observe, pause, engage and navigate. So it takes you through that journey of how you interact with that person. Also not just interacting, it's making sure you're emotionally...
You're listening in as
able
well.
to as well.
Yeah.
So there's a two-way element there. But, once that person has disclosed to you that they are struggling, then it enables you to be able to take that conversation further and then also navigate to the support. As a charity, we don't advise, we guide, we support. There's lots of other charities that we work with and we signpost to for our helpline as well. So it's just enabling that individual to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because there's a big difference between, if that person you walked past, you could have been that light that guided them in a different direction by just saying hello or
so
how are you.
One really small action can just turn things around, can't it? Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, so essentially this course is for everyone.
Yeah.
You just have to bring your compassion, your heart into it. So you don't need to be a professional or...
It's kind of bringing it back to that point of things that we used to do before COVID.
Do you know what? That's so true. When I was following the course myself, it sort of just reminded me of this is how humanity should be. But because of the way we are now and the way we live our lives and everything's online and social media, it's a very different world, isn't it?
It is.
And it's almost like we need to retrain people how to be, to look out for these signs and to help each other.
But still stay connected, because now you have no way of going back to how things were. You are digitally connected. But the crux of it is still connection. If someone feels that they're alone, if they can find that connection somewhere or with someone, even digitally, or by picking up a phone, because you don't want to pick up phones now, you just want to chat on WhatsApp or something. The voices are missing right now, and which is where we are trying to break the silence. A bit of a training maybe on how to have a conversation which is warm and full of empathy is what Open Course is about.
Yeah. So I'd say to all my listeners, check it out. It really is free. It's online. It takes about an hour.
Yes.
Maybe.
An hour it's self-paced, so you can...
Yeah, there's no pressure, is there, either?
You can go back to it if you need a bit of a break. It's... You take it in your own stride, basically.
Yeah.
Also for an incentive, not that you need an incentive to know how to have a warm conversation with someone, but as an incentive, at the end of the course, you get that badge to put up on your socials. It also tells other people that you doing something, it takes a word forward as well, and you get a certificate for.
Yeah, I mean, we see this as it's that domino effect, isn't it? The more people that do the course, there's more lives that could potentially be saved.
Yes.
And I think we've had it asked before. Someone said, "Well, why are you offering this for free?" And it's like, well, why wouldn't we? You know, we're not, as a charity, as we said before, we only exist because we're needed.
Yeah.
We don't want to have to exist. You know, this charity was born out of someone else's loss, and if we can make a massive impact and actually change the way things are being done, then yeah, that's what we need to do. And I think just having that basic conversation
is a starting point.
And it is so basic, and it's so, you know, it's not complicated.
Yeah.
But it has the power to change someone else's direction or their destinies. And I think that's key for us.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that you've offered it for free as well. It's amazing. So it's available to anybody that wants to go on and do it.
Yeah, online. I mean, I think we've had a few people even in America doing the course.
Yeah.
And
someone from Toronto as well, Canada. So
you know,
the Americas.
For us, that's amazing. I mean, it's not just
that's
for
that's the flip side of digital media, though, the digital conversations, that it could go that far organically, because again reinstates the fact that there are so many people who are affected by suicide or suicide ideation or mental illnesses, and they have nowhere to start that conversation because of the stigma, and they're now slowly trying to come together. And if it's with a conversation starter or with a color, to identify with another person who feels the same as you do, why not? And it's easy to approach people that way.
So for someone maybe having suicidal thoughts, what are the warning signs to look out for?
I think with this one, because as we say, we
are facilitators.
Yeah, we don't advise, but we can.
Yeah, we're not experts, as we say. But there are, like, if you see the change in behavior in someone around you, like me and him, we talk every day, and suddenly I see that he's being, as you should not use the word, but moody, or not being his usual self, or hiding, you know, just wearing your hood and just moving around, not showing your face, or being very different to his usual self. That's not exactly suicidal, but of course he's going through something, and as a friend or a colleague or someone,
and that's the moment to open the conversation.
Exactly.
Say,
yes.
So of course there are many times when there are no signs and things might seem abrupt. We've all gone through these experiences. We all have our lived experiences of knowing someone who has died by suicide. Or
it's always been, I think one of the lessons I learned when I first came into the charity sector was I came in with the mindset that I could save everyone. I want to save everyone. But the reality is, through people who I've lost, is that that's not always the case. No. And I had to learn, actually, I did as much as I could for those individuals. And that's all I could do. But it was hard to say, actually, I you know, one of the suicide attempts was stopped.
Yeah.
But then there was a moment where that person was on their own, and they took it was just a thought, and they took that decision. So we couldn't be there with them 24 hours. But that was the reality that I had to wake up to, was that, you know, we're all human. We can only do what we can. But if that individual chooses, they will take that destiny then to their own hands.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we're not signed up to Zero Suicide, because we can't actively say that we can prevent every suicide. No one can. All we can do is be the support there, and make sure that people know where to turn to, or have the ability to do what we do to spot those signs or spot the changes in someone's behaviour or moods, because that's the red flag. You know, if someone's gone from has been really, really happy to then really
suddenly
low, and then suddenly have gone back up again, that could be that someone's made a decision.
Yeah.
And that change, that erratic change in their mood is maybe time to step in. But as I said, there's no formula. There's no formula. No. I think it's about tapping into your own inner like senses and vibes, and reading people and know and feeling that something's not right.
Yeah.
If something doesn't feel right in your gut, then that's something telling you need to,
Yeah, it's good
reach
advice. Good advice.
You know.
Now, one of the issues I'd like to talk about is the language surrounding suicide. And I've talked about this on other episodes, but I feel it's important to keep talking about it. So before the Suicide Act in 1961, it was considered a criminal offence to die by suicide. And those who attempted suicide and survived could face prosecution and imprisonment, while the families of those who died could also be held accountable, which sounds crazy reading that out now. But unfortunately, remnants of this outdated mindset still persist today, and some individuals continue to use the term committed suicide, despite it no longer being a crime. How does the charity deal with this kind of outdated language?
I mean, I think
we don't use the word committed.
Yeah.
That's a rule. That's a ground rule that, because as I said, I'm only 5 months old in this charity, but that's our first conversation. I remember that any comms, that we do a lot of comms work. That's our job, right? That's our bread and butter. Was do not use the word committed, because committed theft, committed robbery, committed a crime.
Yeah.
Not committed suicide. It's died by suicide because it's death or suicide ideation. But as long as we don't take that step, anyone who's reading it does not see the difference. And I think Kieran did this last month. He did a lot of Mythbusters about the language around suicide and the thoughts about, talking about suicide is going to make someone suicidal. Take that step, and Mythbusters like that. And he did a lovely series there, which gained a lot, wherein we realized people actually lack that information. And as I said, like in India, my country, suicide is still a criminal offense, and then you do not die by suicide. You somehow get saved, and then you are under prosecution, you're taken to the court, and it's like putting a hammer on top of a nail that's already hurting you. So
I didn't realise that.
So again, it's a language.
The communities, stigma. So the whole Indian community or the South Asian community here, it's a big stigma talking about, like, you would not even utter the word suicide. They would go with S word or something like that.
Okay.
And we have been trying to break that. Like Kieran did a huge campaign around on socials with the S word. Do not say the word suicide.
Yes.
Because as long as you do not even utter that word, how are you going to fight it? How are you going to prevent it? So
It's funny because you have to look at how people are saying it in the terminology that they're using, because if it's someone who has lost someone in a past tense where it was a criminal offence, they're probably more likely to use the word committed.
But the connotations really exist.
Because it was a crime when that person ended their life. So we get a lot of that when people talk about the sharing of their experiences. But I think whenever I've heard someone say the word committed, and
because it was not culturally, I was used to hearing that.
Yeah.
It pains me to have to correct someone.
Yeah.
But I just go, it's funny you use the term committed. That's not a word we use anymore. It's not a criminal offence anymore. And you give a bit of explanation around it. You're educating that individual.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we will have to constantly do that until you get to a point where that notion has died out, so to speak. It's not a word that people use because
it's not a crime.
It's the context. So you're dealing with a generational.
That's the thing,
shift.
isn't it? As time goes by and more people have these conversations, and like say, people get educated.
Yeah, not just generational; it's cultural as well. As I said, in my country, it's people just say committed suicide very colloquially because it's still a criminal offence in India, sadly.
Yeah.
But that's how, like, committed suicide. That's how people say it if they utter the word suicide at all. I know I'm going to get trashed by my community after this, but I'm just saying how it is. It's really sad.
But you're helping to break the stigma.
Yes, that's
and
the
it shows
point.
you the stigma is still there.
Absolutely, and that's why we need to have these conversations.
Absolutely,
isn't it?
and with the survivors as well, because you're a family bereaving someone who's died by cancer, and you get a lot of sympathy. But someone died by suicide, and then the family or the partner or someone, they're always looked down upon somehow, and like, you could have done something, or maybe you were the reason.
Yeah, it's that stigma, isn't it?
Yes,
that just sticks with it.
It's huge.
But sometimes you can reinforce the stigma yourselves without realising it.
Yes.
It's. I think, as we said, over time, and I'll use this really weird analogy because it's educational, but you know, some of us grew up when we did like GCSEs, where you got the letter, and then
I
they changed
remember
it.
those. That's how old I am.
Well, that's why that's how I was. But then they changed it to numbers, so you've got to get your head round. Wait a minute. Well, did you get a B or did you get a 8? I mean, it's like you're
Yes.
changing the dynamics of how people, what they're used to, and I think once that slowly changes over time, and obviously reinforcing, you know, those messages.
Yeah.
You know, don't use the S word. Say the word suicide.
Absolutely.
You know? It's the same. You had the same with cancer. People used to say the C word. It's funny how that's now being reclaimed because as charities we all work together.
There's always this one thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there's another charity, SOBS, who we've done bits with, especially on Remembrance Day, and they're doing a campaign at the moment saying, "Don't say the C word."
Yeah.
So they're playing on that element as well. So it is as charities, we're just going to have to keep doing.
It's just an ongoing process, isn't it? Until eventually it's not in our language anymore. And it's like when we talk about cancer, there's a special language that we talk about cancer. It's people fighting a battle, they turn it into a war, and that needs to change as well. In 2 of my previous podcast episodes, I had the privilege of speaking with individuals who had faced the loss of a loved one to suicide. Both of them shared that they were both completely shocked and didn't see it coming. And I can't help but wonder, is this common among others who have experienced bereavement by suicide?
I think pulling on my experience and your personal experience,
yes.
It does feel like a shock.
Yes.
But it was like, until you've lost someone, you don't necessarily look for information or support, do you? You're completely kind of cut off from that world. I think when you do lose someone, then you're more susceptible to looking and trying to find information out. But yeah, I think on the occasions that I've lost people, it's felt like a shock. Wasn't expecting it. You know, I'd spoken to them 2 days before, you know, and they were fine. We were laughing and joke, you know.
Yeah.
And then I get a phone call to say, you know, they've taken their own life.
Yeah.
And you're like, but they've just set up their own business. Everything's going to be really going well for them. You know, I don't understand. So, yeah, I think we hear that a lot, and especially the Annual Remembrance Day, when we've heard people share their stories, they've said similar things. And I think my experience is that individual probably didn't want people to know, and they've kept it quiet and they've kept it to themselves. So yes, it would be a shock. I think it's quite, you know.
Yeah, I mean, even when, you know, someone is going through something, like they're sad, they're depressed, and then you think that I can do something to make their life better. Tomorrow might be a better day. You never expect them taking that extreme step of trying to end their life. But like with my experiences, you know, so they were sad about being here. They wanted to meet their family and everything, which was one of the reasons. But it was like they could not culturally assimilate here, etc. So tickets were done for like sometime in mid-September for going back to India, and 3 days before that they just died by suicide. I mean, which is like, no one could see that coming because they were happy. They were packing their bags and they wanted to go back. Yeah, because that's what they wanted to. Then why did they take that step? You left with those questions then. So I don't think even if you go and ask our founders about, like Anna was a successful lawyer. She had her children, she had a family, or any of us, like we all have we know someone or we know of someone who has died by suicide. And why didn't, like, if it's a friend of a friend, you would think, why didn't they ask for help? Or that they were fine. What happens all of a sudden? Questions remain. But
well, I'm going to share something here, and I hope it's appropriate. If it's not, we can edit it out. But a few days after my son died, I was so full of pain and grief. Something just switched in my brain, and I just wanted to get in my car and drive fast and hit something. It was literally like there was no thought process to it. And the only thing that stopped me in the end was the thought that I might hurt other people.
Yes.
And that stops me. But I do wonder sometimes with suicide, does something just click and it's just an action that's taken very suddenly without a lot of thought process?
It was the same with your friend as well, wasn't
Is
it?
it appropriate
That they
to
thought
mention
of.
this here?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
we are trying to have all of these difficult conversations. That's what our charity is about. But
The moment has come in this, I knew it was going to hit me.
I know.
Okay.
I was looking at
I'm
him.
very open about my experiences, and I've been in that situation.
Okay.
So, and that was coming out of a very bad, horrible relationship after 6.5 years, and feeling lost.
Yeah.
And not knowing who I was or who I was meant to be. And I remember going and having drinks, and funny enough, an ex who was going through something similar, and I was, and they were talking away, and I was doing the listening bit. I was doing the bit that I always do, the caring, pushing all my worries aside, and I was doing listening, and suddenly it just popped into my head, and it was literally just a thought, and it was, I don't want to be here anymore. And yeah, it was that, and it was strong, and it was, and nothing else mattered. And I was like, that's not me. And it was when my friend turned around and said to me, he said, right, okay, what do I do with this information? I've just thrown a curveball. And if it wasn't for him saying, but why is it, what's making you feel that way? It then allowed me to then start talking about and actually starting to process, actually, why did that thought pop into my head? And I think the crux of it is, it was a thought. It was something that literally just popped in. And in that moment in time, had I been on my own? Possibly.
Well, thank you for sharing that. But it's about having these conversations.
What you
isn't it?
said is what actually is a big kind of... It stops so many people, because I have had that kind of thought in a past relationship where I was contemplating. I was standing on the 6th floor of a balcony and thinking, should I just jump? Because what's the point? And then I was like, I will jump. I might end my life. I might break bones and be in the ICU for God knows how long, which would be bad because I was in India. I would be put in the jail as soon as I was all right. I'm sorry, I'm laughing. It's not laughing matter. But if I die at that moment, I would have my parents and my sister, and they would be hurt for the whole foreseeable and the unforeseeable future. They would be broken because we as a family unit are very tight, and one hurts and the other cries, and that sort of thing happens. I'm not crying.
Oh, yeah. But the people that take that choice, they probably
must be
don't...
so much pain.
So much pain.
Yes.
That doesn't come into their heads.
Bigger than any of these thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think it's instantaneous. But there are also people who plan, like,
Some people
give things away.
Yeah, you'll start to see those signs that they've made a decision, isn't it?
They've given their things away, and then they have left a note. The writing the note thing. It also takes a lot of planning, because sometimes writing that out might also pull you back. That, oh my God, what am I doing? But your brain's such a strange place to be.
Absolutely,
so complex that you don't know one thing from the other. Like 3 people, 4 people sitting here. We all have different thoughts going on in our head right now.
Yeah.
So.
But one thing I say is thank you for sharing that with us, because it's those experiences that actually, make us think. And interestingly, you said that when we lost my dad, my mum, and she only came out to me recently about telling me this, and she said, you know what, when your dad died, I wanted to run and jump off a pier and be with him. And that was, we lost my dad to a heart attack. But that jumped through her head, and that was what was in her mindset. And she wasn't thinking about us. But afterwards she said the same thing. She was like, but all about all the other people that would have been affected.
Yes.
So I think some of us do have that internal switch that we can...
Yes.
That prevents us. But I think it's also... for those who are in that period of pain, it can be quite split, quite just spontaneous.
I mean, the message that we are trying to give here is not to shock or affect people in a negative way, but that think about it, speak about it, or maybe find an alternative course of action.
Yeah.
Because the people you left behind, they are shattered for life.
Yes, yeah. Can we talk about the people who are left behind? Because unless a suicide letter was left, they never get to know the answer why their loved one died by suicide, and they will continue to search for that elusive why, as if there's some magical answer that will make everything clear. But the truth is, they might never know. And people crave closure, don't they? Yes. Do you have any words of wisdom you could share to maybe help people loosen or lighten their grief in some way in this scenario? I mean, what do we say to these people?
I think we touched on it a little bit earlier, was that the reality is sometimes if it's happened in a moment and it's not a planned thing, there's never a note, so to speak.
No.
And I think the reality is that there's always going to be those questions. You're never going to get those answers. And we see it with when we had the annual remembrance event in Warwick, which we did second year this year. And it was really interesting to see those who came along when they were talking about their stories and then their experiences and their shared experiences. And there was other people sat there going, wow, I thought I was alone in that.
Yeah.
I thought it was only us that experienced that. And it's like, well, you've opened up a doorway for a conversation. And those people then paired up after the event and carried on that conversation and that support network.
Yeah.
But it's only by sharing and telling these experiences. But I think it's a hard pill to swallow. And the reality is that you may not ever know why they did it or what they could have done to prevent it.
If you're looking for answers like that, closure is difficult, but like grieving is a weight, isn't it? It's a heavy weight. So it's best shared because that lightens up the pain somewhat. I mean, sometimes you don't get to know the answers, and we need to be more acceptable of the fact that you may never know.
Yeah.
But sharing that thing and that realizing that you are not guilty of living, of surviving, or you're not guilty just because you have been left behind. You need to move on as well.
Yeah.
They didn't do it because of what you did. They did it because they were in extreme pain.
And no amount of love can stop people in this scenario.
No.
It's not a lack of love, is it?
No. I had, so our very first annual remembrance evening, I had another friend. It just shows you that the age bracket that I'm in, there is a high proportion.
So scary, isn't it?
It is.
And I recently touched base with someone I went to school with because I'd posted out about a yearbook that we had done, and it was coming up for like, when did I leave? 25 years. 24 years since we left school. And he messaged me and said, "Oh, do you mind if we meet up? Because I've never seen our yearbook." I was like, "Yeah, we'll go for a coffee." And we sat there and we went through it. But previously to that, he had disclosed to me that he'd tried to end his own life. Obviously, knowing that I work for charity, it seems that in itself was opening up doorways. And his was because of a recent diagnosis of autism that made him feel that way. And the unanswered questions of why he was the way he was.
Yeah.
And to be honest, we were in that coffee shop for about 2-3 hours, and we went through everything. We talked about our lives, his lives, when we were at school, things we'd done. And even I was going, wow, I had to question, did we get the support when we were at school? No. But I asked him to come along to the very first one. And it was an experience. And I did have to comfort him halfway through the day, or for the evening, because he sat there, and afterwards when we spoke, he said, "I'm glad I came." He said, because hearing those stories and hearing about those people who've lost people, he said, that could have been my parents up there. And that was enough to knock him out of that thought process. And he came this year as well.
Well, I went to your event at Warwick Castle earlier this year with my husband Bill, who sits in the studio very quietly doing all the recording. It was such a beautiful evening of reflection, connection and healing. I felt it was emotional, listening to people's stories, but everyone came together to honour the lives of those loved ones who died by suicide. And I particularly loved the opportunity to light a candle in their memory And the choir were incredible.
Yes.
The choice of songs were amazing. The weather was amazing. So this is an event that happens every year?
We had our very first one last year, and the idea is we want to keep it going.
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit more about this and your future plans for it?
So, yeah, I mean, because ironically enough, some of the questions we got, because we're a local charity, we've started it in locally to Warwick.
Yeah.
But we were getting messages from all over the place.
Gloucester.
We can't make it, but we would like something to do similar. So that's where we're in the process of seeing out how we could.
Which is where the Populise campaign happened, because it's digital, so you can join the campaign from wherever you are.
So we want to try and expand it. So actually, it doesn't just become a physical one place. Other people can set up pop-up ones. So, and they can, because we've always said we are a facilitator. We literally, that whole annual Remembrance Day is facilitating people to come together to share their stories and how they're feeling, to then also help support others and share their grief. And I think if we can, yes, it started off at Warwick Castle, doesn't mean it has to stay there. It's just about packaging that and saying, if someone wants to do that, if they want to continue that in their own area, then let us know, and we'll give you the tools to do that.
We'll enable you with tools and the know-how. And if someone wants to do it in their local community or the town, we can obviously.
I mean, these things do happen all the time, especially with people with, I've been to like local churches that have done every year. You can go and have, you can light a candle. So we're not reinventing the wheel. But we're just saying that this is, bringing people together is a way of helping that healing process. And I think for some that is it. They need that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But they need that for
it's one kind of closure, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might not find that answer that you're looking for, like why they died by suicide, why did they take that step, but at least you have a place where you are together with a lot of people who have that same journey.
They all understand what you're going through.
Yes, there's no stigma there. There's no judgment, most importantly.
Yeah.
And there's no guilt.
Yeah.
And it's a safe space for people, because some of those people who went up on stage, that was probably the hardest thing they've ever done.
Yeah.
They've never done it before.
Speak about their grief and all of their feelings, the whole venting out and letting go, because that actually helps bring closure, the letting go of your guilt or your sorrow. I mean, there's no letting go. There's no timeline to grief, as I said. But
also the other part of it was, we had a
finding
board,
a safe space.
having a safe space, but we had a board where you could pin the picture up as well, because you hear a lot of stats that are said about these people. There's X amount of people died by suicide.
Yeah, they're not just numbers.
But there's people behind
those. They're real
those.
humans.
And that was part of that event, was to bring those people back into focus again and say they did exist, they did have a life, whatever decision they took was theirs, but they made an impact on people's lives, and that should be remembered.
Absolutely. And people need to be heard, don't they, and seen, and their grief needs to be validated. It's so important.
Most important.
And I think moving on from the Annual Remembrance Days, not only did we want to try and then replicate that throughout. I'm going to lay a line here now, because I have mentioned it before and I did get the go-ahead. I'm in the process of working it out at the moment. But I want to put a government petition head as part of the charity, to effectively have this as a national day.
Yes.
I think we've got to a point now where there now needs to be a proper acknowledgement for those who have died by suicide.
Yes.
It seems like the next step, it used to be a criminal offence, it's been decriminalised.
Yeah, the acknowledgement needs to be there.
The acknowledgement needs to be there.
So does that. That's amazing.
Because that's the biggest difference between considering it a stigma or not, because that acknowledgement, if it comes at a national level, you then feel like if someone or your family has died by suicide, you don't need to hide. Or if you are going through suicide ideation, you can come up, it's talk about it. Just talk about it. That's all it takes sometimes.
Yeah.
Because the problem is those who have lost people to suicide, if the stigma is so strong and they are just so ashamed of the whole process, they're not going to be able to seek the support that they actually need. So it's trying to not trying to soften that suicide is an option. It's saying that actually those who do take their lives, they are remembered. They're not just a statistic, and that
You don't need to be ashamed.
You don't need to be ashamed.
No. So do you feel that people who have experienced a loss by suicide need specialist grief therapists or practitioners, people that have taken extra training in this area?
I think it comes down to you need to, there's support out there. So one of the things that we do as well as part of the helpline is we signpost. So there's the Hub of Hope.
Yeah.
We will direct people.
Or ask people to go and see their GP and get a referral.
Yeah. We're not experts, and a lot of the charities will do the same. There's different charities for different aspects. So,
for young people.
There's those
young
who deal
adults.
with bereavement. And then we see ourselves as the prevention side. We're trying to prevent people from getting to that point.
Sometimes talking to a friend also helps.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I always thought it was daft, but I do it. I have a group of friends that will meet up probably once a month and have a coffee and a round robin, and we just
those support
we just
groups
let
help
go
as well.
of everything that's winding us up.
That's the best therapy.
Yes, a cup of tea and a friend.
Yeah.
You know, and that helps, and you go away and you feel like you've just released all that.
I think that's so refreshing to hear as well, Kieran, because men especially, I come from a generation where sort of big boys don't cry.
It's still there. It's
that type of mentality.
It's still there,
and I know we've got a long way to go, haven't we?
But as I said, it's the tide is changing.
Yes.
On how people see themselves. I mean,
you don't have to be a manly man.
No.
Just be like...
Never human.
Don't cry like a girl.
Yeah.
Those things are
all
still...
of those things are so outdated now, aren't they?
Yes, but they're still said.
I know.
Don't run like a girl. Don't cry like a girl. Don't be like a girl.
Yeah.
I know how sorrow is associated with feminism, or like femininity, rather. I mean... He cries a lot, and I think that's a big show of strength.
She's letting all your secrets out now.
It's not a laughing matter. To be able to be vulnerable in a place, in any space. Yes, we are offering you a safe space, but I am a woman and I cannot cry easily, and he can. I think he's stronger than me there.
Yeah.
I
think it's
taken
interesting.
a while to get to that stage.
Oh no, but
but yeah, it's.
But it is interesting. I remember going into a pub and seeing a group of girls, and one of the girls was upset, and the girls were, comforting her, and I thought,
men don't do that.
You don't see men doing that.
No, which is so sad.
Yeah, it is sad, isn't it? But I think, hopefully conversations like this will help to change. Go some way to helping to change.
We are trying to shed some spotlight on men's mental health in November as well.
Yeah.
November is about prostate cancer and everything, but because there is some conversation that starts around this time and people do pay some attention, we want to take the opportunity as a charity as well to talk about mental health, because death by suicide is statistically, it's the biggest reason for men under 50 to die. Am I putting it right? The sentence.
I mean, the stats are changing. It depends on where you are.
Yes, but
we're part of the. We go to the Coventry and Warwickshire Suicide Prevention Network, so we get stats.
Yes.
And
suicide is the biggest reason for men under 50.
Yeah, but also now seeing women creeping up as well.
Okay.
Because again, the conversations, because we're not meeting so regularly, or we're not talking as much, so the stress points, they do not get relieved of.
And I think this is what we were saying before. Once you get to that point where everyone assumes that those that die by suicide have mental health issues, it's clinical.
Wrong.
It's not always the case. It can be everyday stuff that over time can weigh on you. And I think this is where just having those open conversations and telling people how you feel and not being ashamed to show your emotions, it can release that pressure.
Seeking support as well.
Yeah.
And seeking support,
And you guys working for a charity that supports people affected by suicide, it must be incredibly challenging for your mind, mental health, because you hearing things every day. Do you feel you have the right support in place And is there more we can do as a society that could help?
I was going to say it's a strange because we talk a lot.
We do.
And I think if we've ever come across
I think
those
with the
things,
frontliners as well, they do have a debriefing at the end of their shifts, so they can
it's like a
let
peer-to-peer
go.
internal.
Okay.
Let go of, because obviously it weighs heavy on you listening to, and they are the most affected. We read things, so ours is a more passive way of conversing between me and Kieran. And then there are fundraisers, so our fundraising manager, she talks to people who are doing it because they are bereaving the death of someone, and they do the fundraising journey, and they send in letters and we read them along with her, because we need to understand their story and where they are coming from. And obviously it affects all of us, but we are a small team, so which the plus is that we are very close to each other and we help each other feel supported. And
we know that we can.
Yeah.
I can say to you and say, "Oh, that was quite a tough one."
yes,
Yeah.
we have arguments about what we should say or shouldn't say,
Yeah.
because you don't want to sound wrong or hurtful or patronizing even, because what you could write could trigger someone else. So that weighs heavy on us as well.
Yeah,
That's another
yeah.
side that no one sees, because what we are writing could trigger the family member, which happens because
And
it's
it does,
only
and I
natural,
think
it's human.
because everyone's in a different journey of their grief, and also different experiences and things like that. Some people, there isn't a rule to grief. So,
No.
But, yeah.
For us, it's a little bit harder.
We have a supportive team in the office and beyond. Our line manager is very supportive of
Good. It's good
us
to
as
hear.
well. And our founders were very supportive of us, because all of us come with some kind of, should we say baggage? No, but there's a reason we are all here.
Yeah.
Is that we have all had some sort of lived experience of, or have seen someone die by suicide close to us.
Yeah.
And
we've come into charity with the purpose for ourselves. I mean, probably don't know, you got your story as well, but I mean, when I came into charity,
we came in prepared. Somehow.
Yeah, it was. I've never worked in a charity before, so I didn't know what to expect. But it was in my head. I was like, I want to be part of something that is making a difference. Not change. I mean, we can't change the world, but if we're contributing to making a difference.
Yeah, like we used to, like even with our data manager, she's looking at things as data, but it still affects her as well, because it's numbers, it's humans, and it's not numbers, isn't it?
I think the work that you guys do is incredible. It really is.
But every day's a school day. We're always learning. So
Yes.
there's, as I said, there's always something that comes up, and we're like,
having a great team around actually helps.
Yes.
Which is at the basis of any work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, before we finish this episode, I'd just like to emphasise that society doesn't like to talk about grief generally, but when it comes to suicide, people really struggle to engage with this subject. And I feel like I'm on a mission to help society become more grief literate. But it wasn't until I did some extra training with Cruise Bereavement a few years ago that I felt confident enough to talk about suicide on my podcast. And we can't all go off and train with Cruise Bereavement, but what we can do is talk about it, or people can complete your online open conversations course. One of my big takeaways gained from my training is that many people experience suicidal thoughts at some point in their lives. And it's important to understand that these thoughts are often temporary, they come and go, and having a suicidal thought doesn't mean you are suicidal. The people who take that tragic step often feel trapped, believing there's no other way out. Their emotional pain can be so intense that it clouds their ability to see any alternatives, and no amount of love you give to that person can save them. I was quite nervous about recording this episode because suicide is such a sensitive topic, and it's important we use the right language and get it right. But society needs to hear these conversations. It needs to learn how to engage with this subject. Hopefully, this episode will help in breaking down the stigma and shame that often surrounds a suicide. So before we finish, is there anything that you would like to talk about that maybe we haven't covered?
Our helpline is available.
Could you give us I will put the details in the
Yes.
show notes, but could you just share the website and the
You'll have to look
telephone
Well,
number?
I'll do the helpline. So the helpline is 0808 115 1505. The hours are different for different days. So Monday to Friday, we are open from 8 p.m. until midnight. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we open a bit earlier at 4 p.m. till midnight. So that's there as a...
Yes.
Oh, thank you guys.
Yeah, and thank
for
you
the
so much
work.
for having us here.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for being my guest today. And listeners, thank you for listening all the way through. We spoke today about things that matter and that can be painful to sit with. If anything in this episode rings true for you right now, if you're feeling hopeless, overwhelmed, or thinking about harming yourself, please reach out immediately. You may not feel like you have a choice, but there are people here who are trained to help and support you. Calling a crisis line or talking to someone, you're being brave. They're important steps, and you are not alone. We need to stop the silence and start the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of A Gift for Grief. If you found it comforting, please consider subscribing to my podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Please also leave a review because it helps others to find the show. Together we can help each other become more grief literate. To learn more about my personal journey and my 2 books on grief, visit www.louisebates.co.uk. The music on this podcast was written and recorded by my son Matthew Bates and can be found on his 2 albums, Fight Back and Kaleidoscope. And finally, if you're struggling with grief or concerned about your mental health, please reach out to your doctor. You don't have to go through this alone. Until next time, be gentle with yourself and thank you for listening.